So we're going to be talking about some kids things and Sherlock Holmes. And see, the thing is, I've been going through I had put all of my things into storage. I was planning on having a child, so I collected the things that for my child for years, for decades actually. And so I had a hard time going through my stuff that was in storage because I didn't want to be reminded of the fact that I didn't succeed in having a child, family, and all these things. So anyway, so for the past well, it's been more than a decade now, I think. I haven't been living with my things. I started collecting some other things, and my life has been really disorganized. Incomplete. I don't know really. Anyway, but I started going through some of the kids' videos, and some of these things I collected recently. And so I went through the stuff I collected recently. Well, like within the last decade or so, because I still had some hopes and now I don't. But so and to my surprise, I was okay going through these things. So I watched these things, and I would highly recommend them. So this is well, anything Sesame Street. I loved growing up with Sesame Street, and James would say, well, I don't see how it helped kids or whatever, and I'd be like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, do 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 do, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and they all played games at the Ladybug's picnic. So you know what? Thank you, Sesame Street, for teaching me how to count to 12. And so yes, Sesame Street did good for kids, because a lot of the time, like once I got to school, I realized a lot of the kids that I was going to school with, they didn't even know how to do that by the time they got into kindergarten or whatever, right? And that's sad. So, I mean, a lot of people, like James, he was reading, he can't remember not being able to read because both of his parents were teachers and they cared to teach him. So, but not everybody has that, right? And so anyway, this Tinkerbell movie, when I first saw that they'd come out with Tinkerbell movies, I was like, oh, this is going to be junk. And I watched them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're actually making good Disney stuff again. So I would highly recommend this. And honestly, when a Disney movie comes out now, I'm watching it. For a long time there, Disney was awful.
They were like American car companies. They were just coasting on their reputation.
Exactly, on the reputation. Now, Jim Henson's Fraggle Rock, I didn't care for Fraggle Rock that much when I was young. But I love The Muppet Show, and I love Sesame Street. So, but watching Fraggle Rock again, I mean, you have Red, who has the pom-poms, right? And she wants to lead. She wants to be the leader, right? And they're just constantly eating the Doozers' creations. The Doozers are working so hard to build towers and whatever, build these things, and the Fraggles just come in and wreck it all. And it's interesting to watch. So I would say if you're interested in the Myers-Briggs sort of, definitely watch Fraggle Rock. It's anyway, Sherlock Holmes, the complete series. I love this series, and my dad bought me this, so I was going through the boxes of stuff this morning. We were listening to Amy Mann just now, and I have good memories of that. And we were listening to Tom Waits' Frank's Wild Years, which is my favorite Tom Waits, which I love Tom Waits anyway. But Frank's Wild Years, wow, that's a good one. So, and it doesn't get high ratings, or at least it hasn't the last I looked. Sometimes the ratings change over the years. You know, people go back to things and they're like, oh yeah, that one's a 5 out of 5 star now, but when it was back for the last 20 years or whatever, it was 1 out of 5 stars or whatever, and they didn't like it. But now all of a sudden, so you never know. And I'm hoping that next time I look into the ratings of Frank's Wild Years, they'll be like 5 out of 5 stars, 10 out of 5 stars. Because honestly, Frank's Wild Years, that's Tom Waite's best album. The songs aren't necessarily as, I don't know, catchy, snappy, whatever, but it's poetry. The album right through, it's there's a message, and it's like a play in your mind, and it's all about it's very important for now, Frank's Wild Years. It's about dreaming and living a dream life, and really honestly, you need to wake up at some point. You need to wake up and realize,
wake up,
you were dreaming. And it feels good to be living in a dream all the time and going from one dream to the next, but the good feeling is only brief, and then you're having to suffer through the reality that things aren't actually like you'd hope they'd be. Now, Sherlock Holmes, I'll watch this again and again and again. My dad bought me this. He remembered that I loved Sherlock Holmes, and he knew that I loved Sherlock Holmes. When I was a little kid, I would watch this. I loved it so much. I love Watson in that. I've talked to other Sherlock Holmes fans, and they don't care for this version. And I don't understand why. I mean, Sherlock Holmes, he's maybe not as arrogant or whatever, as they would like him to be. I don't know. But for me, Sherlock Holmes is really about Watson. Now, you admire Sherlock Holmes, and that's good, because really you have to be able to identify with Watson. Watson is where the story is coming from. It's not coming from Sherlock Holmes, it's coming from Watson. So you get Watson's impression of Sherlock and how he's solving the cases, and you get that in this. And you identify with Watson in this. In other Sherlock Holmes versions, Watson's just a sidekick, like Robin from Batman or something, or he's a
comic foil.
A buffoon or whatever, and he shouldn't be that. You have to be able to identify with him, or you're missing the point of the story. So watch this and listen to Frank's Wild Years. So we're gonna spend the time now with a bit of a wrap up, I suppose, because we have some time on the camera. I don't think I took that long talking about these things. So we were talking about anti-Semitism, so viral, the PBS thing, and we were talking about Asian Americans, PBS, and which you also have to watch, both of those things. Watch them. They're important. And one thing that's interesting to note for the wrap-up of those is that in the anti-Semitism PBS thing, they did not mention concentration camps once. Not at all. And in the Asian Americans video, they mentioned concentration camps.
Well,
and I remember they were calling them concentration camps. And I remember when I first learned about the Japanese internment and stuff like that, I thought, what? This happened? And how many people were killed? And, you know, were they gassed like the Jews in Germany? And what was going on? You know, why haven't I heard about this and that? Well, because they weren't concentration camps. It was not the same thing. And my first impression when I heard about them was, wow, you know, why has this been hidden from us that we had concentration camps? And because we didn't. It wasn't that. To call it that is offensive, frankly, because
the Jewish
exactly, it does. And
Gypsies' experience in German concentration camp might have been started during the Boer War, and they might have actually been called that. But after World War II, that word took on a whole new meaning. And when you appropriate that for what happened to the Japanese in World War II, it is demeaning.
I mean, a lot of innocent people were put into camps.
Mm-hmm.
There's no denying that. But at the same time, how can you, if you look at it from an outsider point of view, how do you deal with that? I mean, they're one of the topics and headings in Asian America for one of the episodes, I guess, Asian Americans, was a question of loyalty. And there was one person interviewed saying, there was never any